Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, where we dive into the creepiest, most chilling, true, scary stories. This is a brand new channel, and my goal is to hit 10,000 subscribers. So, if you love true scary stories, make sure to subscribe and be part of this journey from the start. Today, we have some terrifying stories sent in by viewers, real experiences that will send shivers down your spine. If you have a scary story of your own, feel free to send it in, and I might read it in a future video. I truly appreciate every single one of you for being here. Your support means the world to me. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to help grow this channel. Now, let's not waste any time. Get comfortable, turn off the lights, and let's dive into some disturbing, true, scary stories. Alright, here's the first story. Let's get into it. Story 1. The Man Who Watches Me Sleep. It was late October when I moved into my new apartment. It was cheap, affordable enough for a broke college student like me, so I didn't really complain much. The neighborhood wasn't exactly safe, but I figured it would be okay. Besides, it was just temporary. The first night was peaceful enough. I fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the move. But something woke me up in the middle of the night, a faint sound coming from outside my bedroom. Half asleep, I glanced at my phone. 3:12 a.m. I shrugged it off and drifted back to sleep. The next morning, I didn't think much about it. New homes always have unfamiliar sounds, creaks, and groans. It was probably just the old building settling. But as the days went on, things became stranger. The second night, I made sure everything was locked up before bed. Windows, doors, everything. But again, I woke up suddenly, checking my phone instinctively. 3:12 a.m. again. This time, there was another sound. A faint tapping. My heart rate quickened as I realized it was coming from outside my window. Tap, tap. I froze, staring at the curtains. After a few moments of silence, I convinced myself it was probably just branches tapping against the glass from the wind. After all, it was autumn, and there were plenty of trees near the building. I closed my eyes, willing myself to sleep. But sleep didn't come easily this time. By morning, I was feeling uneasy, but the rational part of me argued that I was being paranoid. So I ignored it, went to work, went on with my life, and tried to forget. It worked, until the third night. This time, I woke up suddenly, heart pounding. The clock read exactly 3:12 a.m., and this time, I knew immediately I wasn't alone. A cold chill ran down my spine. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness, and that's when I saw him. There, in the corner of my room, stood the shadowy figure of a tall man. He was incredibly tall, maybe 7 or 8 feet, and unnaturally thin. Completely pitch black, yet clearly defined against the darkness. He stood motionless. My blood turned to ice when I saw his eyes. They glowed an unnatural white, almost illuminating the room. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to scream, but no sound came. Every muscle in my body refused to move, paralyzed by fear. He took a slow step forward, then another. His movements were deliberate, slow, yet impossibly fluid. As he reached the edge of my bed, I felt tears stinging my eyes. This couldn't be happening. It had to be a dream, a nightmare, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. The figure leaned closer, its white eyes inches from mine. Then, softly, almost gently, it whispered, "I don't want to hurt you. I just want to help." As strange as it sounds, relief washed over me. His voice was calm, reassuring. Suddenly exhausted, I sank back into the mattress. The next thing I remember is waking up in the morning sunlight, my body aching all over as if I'd been running all night. For days afterward, I told myself it was nothing more than a vivid nightmare, a trick of the mind. It was easier to cope that way, and I desperately wanted to forget it ever happened. But exactly 1 week later, everything changed again. I woke abruptly in the middle of the night, and there he was, standing silently at the foot of my bed. Before I could react, he raised a shadowy hand, making strange gestures I couldn't recognize. Fear surged through me again, stronger than before. Finally, he spoke, his voice the same calm whisper, "I know you thought it was just a bad dream. Believe me, it wasn't." Gathering all my courage, I stammered, "Who are you? What do you want?" He paused before answering, almost thoughtful. "I go by many names," he said calmly. "But for you, it's Einstein, and I don't want anything from you. I just want to guide you." I didn't reply, unsure how to react. Then he added something chilling. "But if you tell anyone else about me, it won't be good for you." After that night, he appeared every single night. Sometimes he spoke. Sometimes he simply stood there, watching me silently. He began giving me instructions. Strange things, random things. He'd tell me not to go to school the next day, not to eat breakfast, or avoid certain people. At first, I ignored him. But slowly, his suggestions became compulsions I couldn't resist. Each time, it seemed to protect me from something minor but unsettling. Avoiding food that later made others sick, skipping a day of school when there was a violent fight. I began to trust his advice, even relying on it. Then, one cold afternoon in December, walking home from school, I noticed a man standing at the street corner. He was staring directly at me. I quickened my pace, but he caught up. "You see him every night, don't you?" he said quietly. My blood froze. Was he talking about Einstein? How could he know? Before I could answer, he continued, "If you think he's harmless, you're wrong. He'll control your every move. Do exactly as I say, or you'll never escape him." He told me about a strange, terrifying ritual to break Einstein's hold. I'd have to cut a small piece of flesh from the palm of my right hand, grip it tightly in my left, paint my wrist red any way I could, and then face east with eyes shut tight until I heard a specific voice whisper in my ear. Then I had to open my hand and offer the piece of flesh. "If you open your eyes before it's done, it won't be pleasant for you," he warned. Reluctantly, I agreed. The dread of being controlled was worse than the ritual itself. That night, trembling and scared, I performed the ritual. I sliced a small piece from my palm, feeling the warm blood dripping down my wrist. Closing my eyes, facing east, I waited. Minutes dragged by. I started doubting, thinking I'd been tricked. Suddenly, sharp nails scratched violently at my hand, desperately trying to steal the meat. I gritted my teeth, keeping my hand tightly shut. Something was terribly wrong. Then I felt a snake slowly climbing up my leg, wrapping around me, squeezing. Still, I held my eyes and fist tightly shut. Then a familiar voice whispered softly in my ear, calm and firm, "Give it to me." Relieved, I opened my hand. Something gently took the flesh, and the presence vanished immediately. When I opened my eyes, my palm was bleeding profusely, and I was shaking uncontrollably. The room was empty. I bandaged myself, and though I couldn't sleep, the relief was profound. Einstein stopped appearing. Days turned into weeks, and I started to believe it was finally over. Until he came back, in a dream. He looked angrier, more sinister. He whispered bitterly, "I'm not finished yet. I will return." But somehow it no longer scared me. After everything I'd been through, I felt stronger, believing I could handle him. But could I? Recently, as I moved into another new apartment, I glanced nervously at my new bedroom window, wondering if he was out there waiting, lurking, watching. Sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear him whispering from the shadows, reminding me he never truly left. I don't know if I'll ever be free. Perhaps he was right when he said he goes by many names. Maybe he's always been there, guiding, controlling, whispering. Now, whenever I wake at 3:12 a.m., I shut my eyes tight and try not to wonder what might be standing just beyond my bed, waiting for me to give in, waiting for me to open my eyes. Story 2. The Room That Shouldn't Exist. It all began the week my fiancé and I moved into our first home together. We'd been saving up for a long time, and after searching through countless listings, we found a charming little house tucked away in an older neighborhood just outside the city. It was an older house, modest but full of character, and more importantly, affordable. Sure, the floors creaked a bit, and the wallpaper was peeling in some places, but we agreed it was a perfect starter home, something we could fix up together. At first, the oddities seemed harmless. On our first night, the lights flickered a bit, and we joked about ghosts and hauntings. Neither of us was superstitious, so it was all in good fun. Then, small things started happening that weren't so easy to dismiss. One Saturday afternoon, while exploring the basement, I stumbled upon something unusual. It was hidden behind a stack of old cardboard boxes filled with forgotten magazines and dusty jars. At the very back, almost obscured entirely, was a tiny wooden door, no more than 3 feet tall, with rusted hinges and a handle that had long since turned black with age. I felt a chill roll down my spine, immediately uneasy. "Hey," I called out, my voice uncertain. "Did you notice this door before?" My fiancée, Hannah, peeked her head around the corner from the laundry area, wiping her hands on an old towel. "Door?" she asked, curiosity piqued. She knelt beside me as we both studied it, puzzled. "This wasn't in any of the pictures," she murmured thoughtfully. Without waiting, I reached out and tried to open it. At first, it stuck. The wood was swollen and warped from years of neglect. I tugged harder, determined now, curiosity gnawing at me. Finally, the door opened with a groan. Behind it was complete darkness. I flicked my phone's flashlight inside, illuminating what looked like a narrow passage leading to another small opening on the far side. I glanced at my fiancée. Her eyes widened in silent disbelief. "What the hell is that?" she whispered, clutching my arm tightly. I shrugged, trying to keep calm. Only one way to find out. Ignoring the alarms ringing in the back of my mind, I squeezed myself into the small space. It was tight, the air stale and heavy. As my eyes adjusted, I realized this wasn't just a crawl space. This was a passageway, leading further into a hidden room, one that shouldn't exist according to the layout of the house. "Honey," my fiancée called, worried now. "Maybe we shouldn't," I silenced her with a gesture. "Just give me a second." Inside, the room was entirely enclosed by brick walls, cold and aged, covered in dust. There were no windows, no vents, no visible purpose. Only a single object sat in the corner. A worn, stained mattress that looked decades old, covered in patches of mold. Beside it lay a battered teddy bear, dirty and matted, its button eyes staring blankly at the wall. My stomach tightened. A deep unease settled in, turning curiosity into dread. "Honey," my fiancée called again, her voice nervous. "What's in there?" "Nothing good," I muttered quietly, backing out slowly, shutting the small door behind me. That night, I slept fitfully, haunted by questions. Who built that hidden room, and why? Was it some secret from the previous owners, or something even darker? Around 2 a.m., I woke suddenly, heart pounding. My fiancée was fast asleep beside me, her breathing steady and calm. But something was off. The house felt too quiet, oppressively silent. I got out of bed, pulled by some irresistible force downstairs toward the basement. The basement door stood slightly ajar, though I was certain we'd shut it tight. My skin prickled, the hairs on my arms standing up as I descended slowly, carefully. Reaching the bottom step, I froze. The tiny door was open again, and the mattress was now lying halfway out, as if someone had dragged it closer. "Honey?" I called, my voice shaking slightly. No answer. Only the echo of my voice bouncing off the cold brick walls. I pushed the mattress back in, slammed the little door shut, and locked it tightly this time, using an old rusted latch I'd found nearby. Sleep didn't come again that night. In the morning, my fiancée found me in the kitchen, sipping coffee with bloodshot eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked, clearly concerned. I hesitated, then confessed what had happened. She laughed nervously, blaming it on nightmares and an overactive imagination. But deep down, I knew this was more than just imagination. Over the following nights, the feeling of dread grew. I'd wake up suddenly, sweating, always around 2 a.m. Sometimes I'd hear whispers, faint yet unmistakable, coming from downstairs. One night, I swear, I heard someone giggling. A soft child's laughter that turned my blood cold. I finally told my fiancée we had to investigate further. Reluctantly, she agreed. Armed with flashlights, we went down to the basement together, opened the hidden door, and shone the beam into the tiny room. It was completely empty. No mattress, no bear, just bricks coated in decades-old dust. My fiancée gave me a skeptical look. "Is this a prank?" I was speechless. I knew what I'd seen. Yet the room mocked me, empty and lifeless. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was losing my mind. Just as I began drifting off, a noise from downstairs shattered the silence. A sharp scraping, like furniture being dragged across the basement floor. Heart racing, I jumped out of bed, rushing downstairs to confront whatever nightmare awaited me. The basement door hung open, darkness pouring out. I stepped forward slowly, calling out into the blackness. "Who's there?" No response. Fear gripping me, I descended the steps slowly, heart racing. And then, my flashlight flickered, illuminating the basement corner where the tiny wooden door stood wide open again, this time swinging gently, as if recently used. A small handprint, fresh, impossibly fresh, marked the dusty floor. It was small, clearly a child's. Behind me, something giggled. Whipping around, I saw a small shadow dart behind the furnace. "Hey!" I shouted, panic surging. "Who's down here?" No one replied. Silence again. For hours, I searched the house, top to bottom. Nothing. Exhausted, defeated, I returned to bed, convincing myself this was stress-induced hysteria. But as I drifted to sleep, a child's laughter echoed softly, coming from somewhere far below. I knew then we needed to leave. But convincing my fiancée was impossible. She grew irritated, convinced I was paranoid. One evening, as I returned home late from work, I found her in tears, trembling, standing near the basement door. "What happened?" I asked, heart sinking. "That teddy bear," she whispered, barely audible. "It was sitting on our bed, facing the doorway." I rushed to our room. There it was, unmistakable, staring blankly into space. That night, we decided we were leaving. But the house had one last horror left for us. As we packed, I heard scratching. Loud, frantic scratching from inside the bedroom wall. "No," I whispered, dread overwhelming me. I grabbed a hammer, prying at the wallpaper, desperate to understand. Behind the plaster, scribbled in childish handwriting, were hundreds of words repeated endlessly. "Let me out, let me out, let me out." We left that very night, never looking back. A week later, I spoke to our landlord. He sighed heavily when I asked about the tiny door. "I hoped you'd never find it," he admitted quietly. "Years ago, long before I bought the place, a family lived there. They had a daughter who vanished. Police searched everywhere, never found her." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. "People said she was locked away, punished by her parents, hidden. Nobody ever found proof. No charges were pressed, rumors faded, people moved on." "What about the teddy bear?" I demanded, my voice trembling. He paused a long moment before replying. "That bear," he whispered, "it belonged to her." I hung up, feeling sick. Months later, driving by the house out of morbid curiosity, I saw something in the window. A pale face pressed against the glass. Just a brief flicker, a trick of the light perhaps. Or maybe she was still there, trapped in the place between walls, waiting for the next occupant. Story 3. The Wrong Uber Ride. It happened about a month ago. I'm a college student, and like most of my friends, I enjoy going out on weekends. I live in a big city, so using rideshare services like Uber had become part of my weekly routine. It was convenient, reliable, and felt safe enough. That is, until one chilling Friday night changed everything. It was late, probably around midnight, when I decided it was time to head home from my friend Jessica's apartment. I'd had a couple of drinks, nothing too crazy, just enough to feel relaxed and a bit tired. Jessica offered to let me crash on her couch, but I really wanted to sleep in my own bed. Standing outside her apartment building, the cool night air brushing my skin, I pulled up the Uber app. It pinged quickly, notifying me that my driver was just a couple minutes away. A black sedan with a license plate ending in 6534. Only about 2 minutes later, a black sedan rolled up. I didn't bother checking the plates, my first mistake, because the car was exactly the kind described on the app, and the driver knew my name. The man behind the wheel was probably in his late 40s, wearing thick glasses. He smiled warmly and greeted me by name. "You're Matt, right?" "Yeah," I replied, opening the back door and sliding onto the smooth leather seat. "Thanks." The ride started normally enough. We talked briefly about mundane stuff, the weather, local news, and how quiet the streets were tonight. But after a few minutes, I noticed something that made me a little uneasy. He wasn't following the GPS directions on my phone. Instead of taking the usual route, he turned onto a dark side street. Hey, I think you're going the wrong way," I said nervously, staring at my phone. The driver didn't reply. His eyes remained fixed ahead, his hands gripping the wheel tighter. "Excuse me," I repeated louder, clearing my throat. "You're heading away from my apartment." Again, silence. The only sound was the low hum of the engine and the soft crackle of gravel beneath the tires. My pulse quickened. I checked my phone screen again, but the signal was weak, nearly non-existent. My stomach dropped. Something was very, very wrong. I decided to confront him more firmly this time. "Hey, sir, stop the car now. I want to get out." He just chuckled softly, shaking his head, eyes still glued to the empty road. My heart began to pound, adrenaline flooding my system. I reached over to open the car door, only to realize something that made me feel sick. The door handle had no lever. It had been removed entirely. Panic surged through me, and I immediately started to pat my pockets, desperately searching for anything I could use to defend myself. My fingers closed around the small pepper spray canister in my jacket pocket, but before I could pull it out, the driver slammed the brakes, jerking me forward in my seat. We had stopped in the middle of nowhere. The headlights illuminated only trees and brush. No houses, no cars, no streetlights, nothing. I tried to stay calm, but my voice shook. "What is this? Let me out. Right now." He finally turned around, and for the first time I saw his face clearly. Beneath the friendly demeanor was something deeply unsettling. His eyes were too intense, too focused. His smile was too wide. He said softly, almost mockingly, "You shouldn't have gotten in." I was paralyzed for a second, fear gripping me. My eyes darted to the door, desperately searching for the handle. Only then did I notice it wasn't just broken, it had been removed entirely, leaving nothing but smooth, sealed plastic. Panic surged through me. This was planned, intentional. My survival instincts kicked in, and I lunged for the opposite door, only to discover it was locked as well. The driver laughed quietly, amused by my struggle. In a flash of desperation, I leaned back and used every ounce of strength I had to kick the window next to me. It cracked slightly on the first kick, sending sharp pain through my heel. Ignoring it, I kicked again. And again. "Stop!" the driver yelled angrily, starting to turn around and grab me. But I didn't stop. On the fourth kick, the window shattered. Glass exploded outward, showering me as I pushed myself through the opening, tumbling painfully onto the pavement. I scrambled to my feet and ran as fast as I could toward the woods. I didn't look back, I just sprinted, stumbling blindly through branches and darkness, terrified he might chase after me. After several minutes, I stopped, lungs burning, and crouched behind a thick tree trunk, listening intently. Silence. No footsteps, no engine sounds, only the soft whisper of wind through the trees. Pulling out my phone, I desperately searched for service. Thankfully, I got a weak signal and called the police. My voice shook as I tried to explain where I was, although I didn't really know myself. The dispatcher kept reassuring me help was on the way, telling me to remain calm and stay hidden. After what felt like forever, distant flashing lights appeared on the road nearby. I approached cautiously, waving frantically when I saw it was indeed a police car. The officers drove me home, carefully recording my story. Later, at the station, I gave them a detailed description of the car, the man, everything I could remember. They checked the Uber records, security cameras, everything. But they found nothing. It turned out the car was never registered with Uber. There was no record of it anywhere. The man simply didn't exist in any database. They promised they'd keep looking, but they told me honestly there wasn't much else they could do without more evidence. Days passed, but nothing changed. I stopped sleeping well. Every night, nightmares haunted me. The man's face, that sinister grin, the dark, empty road, the missing door handle. Eventually, I got my life back to some normalcy. I returned to class, I saw friends again, but I swore I'd never take an Uber alone at night again. The fear lingered, and paranoia became second nature. One evening, nearly 2 weeks after the incident, I received a message notification on my phone. It was from an unknown number. Heart racing, I opened it. It was a single sentence. "You got lucky that night." I stared at the message, my blood turning cold. Below the message was a photo attachment. My fingers shook as I opened it. It was a blurry photo taken from a distance, but even through the poor quality, I could clearly see it was me, standing outside Jessica's apartment the night it happened. And just behind me, almost hidden in shadows, was the unmistakable figure of the man with the glasses. He was watching me, waiting. I deleted the message instantly, blocked the number, and changed mine immediately. The police still haven't caught him, and I doubt they ever will, but I know he's out there somewhere, waiting, watching, and remembering. I still wonder sometimes, when I look over my shoulder at night, is he out there waiting for me again, just another car ride away? One thing is for sure, I'll never let my guard down again. Story 4. The Little Girl in My Window. I've lived on the 3rd floor of my apartment building for 3 years now. It's an older, boxy structure with tall windows and no balconies, perched on a busy street corner. Every day I climb 2 long flights of stairs, unlock my creaky front door, and step into my cozy 1-bedroom unit. Even though it's on the 3rd floor, it has huge windows, tall enough that sometimes I worry about falling out if I lean too far. But I always felt safe, knowing nothing was below me but solid pavement and the occasional parked car. That sense of safety vanished last week. It was a Sunday night, well past midnight. The city was silent in that eerie way it only is around 2 a.m. No passing cars, no voices from late-night revelers, not even the hum of distant traffic. I'd been reading a novel, trying to lull myself to sleep, when an inexplicable wave of unease crept over me. It felt like a gentle chill on the back of my neck, as if someone were standing behind me, watching. I flicked off my bedside lamp and lay down, closing my eyes. For a moment, the stillness of the room settled around me, but I couldn't shake the prickling sensation of being observed. My heart pounded gently, and my mouth felt dry. Finally, I turned over to face the window, and that's when I saw her. There, pressed against the glass on the outside, stood a little girl. Her pale hands were flat on the pane, fingers splayed wide. Her hair was dark and hung limply over her face, partially obscuring it, but I could see enough to notice her features were unnaturally still, like a porcelain doll. She was far too small to be a teenager, yet there was something uncomfortably mature about the way she stared, like she understood exactly how terrified I was. My blood ran cold. Instinctively, I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out at first. My voice caught in my throat. Finally, a short, sharp cry escaped me. The girl didn't move. She just stood there, her face almost pressed to the glass, her hair swaying slightly as if tugged by a gentle breeze from nowhere. I scrambled for my phone, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it twice. My thoughts were frantic. This is the 3rd floor. No one could possibly climb up here without a fire escape or balcony. When I finally managed to unlock my phone, I flicked on the flashlight. In the beam of light, dust motes danced across the room. I aimed it at the glass, my heart in my throat. She was gone. I jolted upright in bed, panting, eyes darting left and right. Had I imagined it? I took 2 cautious steps forward and pressed my palm to the cool glass, peering outside. The streetlight below threw weak amber hues onto the sidewalk. No shadows. No girl. That's when I noticed the handprints. 2 small shapes were smeared on the window, as if someone with dusty or dirty hands had pressed them against the glass moments before. Adrenaline spiked in my veins. I backed away, nearly stumbling over the edge of my bed. My mind raced. There's no way she climbed down. I spent the rest of the night huddled in my blankets, lamp blazing, every light in the apartment switched on. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that pale face lurking just beyond the glass. The next morning, in the stark safety of daylight, I walked around the building to see if there was any ledge or pipe a child could have used to reach my window. There was nothing but a sheer wall. Impossible. Yet I couldn't deny the evidence. I called the building manager. He checked the security cameras in the lobby, the stairwells, even footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera that pointed toward part of the street. Nothing. No sign of any child at all. For a few days, life carried on, although I never felt the same sense of ease in my own bedroom. I found myself peeking behind the curtains every night before bed, heart pounding. But the window stayed empty. Then, 2 nights ago, I woke up around the same time, to 2 a.m., to that same chilling feeling. I forced myself not to look. If there's something there, I don't want to see it. I thought maybe if I ignored the feeling, it would go away. But curiosity overcame me. Slowly, I turned my head. The curtains were half open, revealing a patch of night sky. The glass reflected a faint glow from the street lights, and for the briefest second, I thought I saw a figure flicker past, like a swift shadow sliding out of sight. I sprang out of bed, yanked the curtains aside. There was nothing. My chest felt tight, and I realized I was holding my breath. I exhaled shakily, forcing myself to calm down. The next morning, I found my window covered in tiny smudges, like partial prints that formed no distinct pattern. They looked almost like child-sized fingertips. I wiped them off with a damp cloth and locked the window, even though there's no balcony outside. I haven't seen the girl again, not yet. Still, each night I stare at the window, half expecting to find a small face staring back, dark hair shielding ghostly features, and when I drift off, I dream of that same pale visage, waiting just on the other side of the glass. I want to move out, but part of me wonders if it would even matter, because wherever I go, I can't escape the thought of her pressing those cold, pale hands to my window, impossibly high above the ground, just watching me. Even now, I sleep with one eye on the glass, terrified that I'll see her again. Story 5. The Whispering Man. Ever since I was a child, I've heard whispers in my house. At first, they were barely noticeable, soft murmurs in the middle of the night, almost blending in with the hum of the heater or the rustling of tree branches outside my window. My parents always told me it was just the wind. I wanted to believe them. But as I got older, the whispers became clearer. They weren't random noises anymore. They were words. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but I quickly realized they only happened at certain times, 3:33 a.m. every single time. That's when I would wake up, my heart pounding, my room deathly silent, except for the faint, raspy voice whispering right outside my door. "Get out." That was the first phrase I ever heard. I was about 10 years old. I remember pulling the covers over my head, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I convinced myself it was just a nightmare. But the next night it happened again. "Why won't you leave?" The whispers weren't constant. Some nights they were absent entirely. But when they did come, they always spoke in the same low, breathy tone, like someone standing just outside my door, lips barely parting to form the words. By the time I was a teenager, I had stopped telling my parents. They always brushed it off as a dream or an overactive imagination. I learned to live with it, treating it like just another quirk of the old house. But everything changed the night I finally saw him. I was 17. It was a cold winter night, and I was struggling to fall asleep. My room felt off, heavier, as if the air had thickened. I turned onto my side, facing my open bedroom door, and checked the time on my phone. 3:33 a.m. That's when I heard it. "I see you." My body stiffened. This was new. The voice had never acknowledged me before. It had always spoken as though I weren't there, as if it was talking to the house itself. But this time, it was talking to me. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement. A shadowy figure stood just outside my doorway. Not moving, just standing there, watching. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My fingers gripped the sheet so tightly my knuckles turned white. The figure didn't move closer. It didn't lunge or attack. It only whispered softly, deliberately, "Don't look at me." And then it was gone. The next morning, I checked the security footage in the hallway. My parents had installed cameras years ago, mostly to keep an eye on the dog when we weren't home. I scrolled through the footage, my hands shaking. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the camera caught something. A man's shadow standing outside my bedroom door, watching, whispering. Story 6. The Wrong Twin. My cousin, Alex, has an identical twin, his brother, Eric. They look exactly alike, down to the way they walk and talk. The only way to tell them apart is a small scar on Eric's forehead. He got it when they were kids, falling off his bike and hitting his head on a sharp rock. Growing up, it was always a joke in the family. People constantly mixed them up, sometimes even their own parents. But I never had an issue telling them apart. Alex was always the louder one. Eric was quieter, more reserved. That's why I didn't think twice when I visited Alex's house last summer. He had invited me over for a few days just to hang out. When I arrived, I saw him sitting on the porch. "Hey, Alex," I called. He turned to me and smiled, but there was something off about it. It was subtle, but enough to send a tiny shiver up my spine. His smile was too still, his expression too blank. But I shook off the feeling and walked up the steps. We spent the day playing video games, talking about work, and making plans to go fishing the next morning. Everything felt normal. Until later that night. I woke up thirsty around 2 a.m. and quietly made my way to the kitchen for a glass of water. As I passed the living room, I froze. Alex was standing in the dark, facing the wall. His body was rigid, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. The dim glow from the kitchen light barely illuminated his face, but his eyes were open, wide open, unblinking. I was about to say his name when I heard footsteps coming from behind me. I turned. Alex, the real Alex, was standing there, rubbing his eyes sleepily. "What are you doing?" he mumbled. I snapped my head back toward the living room, but he was gone. The empty space where the other Alex had been standing sent my heart racing. I felt a cold sweat break out over my skin. I swallowed hard. "Dude, were you just in the living room?" Alex frowned. "No, I just woke up." I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say that I had just seen him standing there, staring at the wall in the middle of the night. But my throat went dry. Instead, I shook my head. "Never mind. I think I was just half asleep." We went back to bed. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to every small creak of the house, waiting for something to move in the darkness. The next morning, over breakfast, I finally brought it up. "Hey, Alex," I said, trying to sound casual. "Did Eric stop by last night?" Alex looked at me strangely. "Eric's not in town right now. He's in another state for work." I felt my stomach drop. "Are you sure?" I pressed. Alex laughed. "Of course I'm sure. He's been gone for weeks. Why?" My hands felt ice cold. I forced a small smile and shook my head. "No reason," I lied. But deep down, I knew what I had seen. And it wasn't Eric, and it definitely wasn't Alex. That night, when I got home, I locked my bedroom door. And for weeks afterward, I had the same nightmare. Alex standing at the foot of my bed, his face blank, his eyes too wide, whispering, "You think you know me, but you don't." Story 7: The Disappearing Neighbor. I live in a quiet apartment building. Nothing fancy, just a small 4-story complex on the edge of town. It's the kind of place where neighbors don't really know each other, where we exchange awkward nods in the hallway but never actually speak. There was one exception, though. The man who lived across the hall from me. He was in his 40s, maybe early 50s, with graying hair and a worn-out face. I never knew his name. He wasn't the kind of guy who made small talk, and I never saw him with visitors. But every morning, without fail, I'd see him standing in his doorway as I left for work. He never said much, just nodded at me as I passed. It became a routine, a strange, unspoken ritual. Until one day, he was gone. At first, I didn't think much of it. People move all the time. Maybe he got a new place, or maybe he was just out of town for a while. But as the days stretched into weeks, I started to get an uneasy feeling. His door remained shut. No sounds came from inside, no TV, no footsteps, nothing. The weirdest part? His mail kept piling up outside the door. Bills, his newspapers, even packages, all sitting there untouched. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I knocked lightly on the door, no answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Silence. I pressed my ear against the wood, listening. And then, just faintly, I heard something. A soft, scratching sound. I jolted back, my pulse quickening. Maybe he had a pet? But I had never seen or heard an animal in his apartment before. I decided to mind my own business. But then the knocking started. It was always late at night, somewhere around 2 or 3 a.m. Soft at first. Tap, tap, tap. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The first time it happened, I woke up groggily, assuming it was my imagination. But then, it happened again. And again. Tap, 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 always from across the hall. One night, I finally worked up the nerve to check. I crept toward my front door, peering through the peephole. I expected to see him standing there, but the hallway was empty. I unlocked my door slowly and opened it just a crack. My breath caught in my throat. Nothing. But when I looked down, my blood ran cold. His mail was gone. The pile that had been sitting untouched for weeks vanished. I slammed my door shut and locked it, my heart racing. I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe the landlord had finally come by and cleaned up the mess. But the next morning, when I left for work, something new was waiting for me. A small note taped to my door. It was written in shaky, uneven letters. I was never real. And now, neither are you. My hands trembled as I ripped it down, my mind spinning. Was this some kind of sick joke? Who had written it? I turned to look at his apartment. The door was open, a thin crack, just enough to see darkness inside. I should have walked away, called the landlord, called the cops, anything. But instead, I stepped forward and pushed the door open. The apartment was empty, completely abandoned. No furniture, no dishes, no signs that anyone had ever lived there. But the walls were covered in writing. Dozens, maybe hundreds of phrases, all scribbled in black ink. Some large, some small, all frantic and overlapping. I was never real. They are watching. He will forget me soon. Don't look in the mirror. My stomach twisted. The air inside the apartment felt wrong, too heavy, too still. And then, in the center of the room, I saw it. A mirror, tall and cracked, standing on its own, reflecting the dim light from the hallway. And in that mirror, I saw him, my neighbor, standing there, staring right at me. But he wasn't in the room, only in the reflection. His mouth moved, whispering something. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew, deep in my bones, that I didn't want to. I turned and ran, slamming the door behind me. The next morning, the apartment door was shut tight again. No sign of the writing, no sign of the mirror, no sign of him. When I asked the landlord about it, he gave me a confused look. "There was never anyone in that unit," he said. "It's been vacant for months." I insisted, told him everything. He let out a dry laugh. "I think you've been working too hard, kid." I stood there, dumbfounded, as he pulled out his records. The lease for that unit had expired a year ago, but I had seen him. I had spoken to him. Hadn't I? That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard the knocking since. But sometimes, late at night when I pass by that apartment door, I swear. I can hear whispers, and sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see him standing there behind me, watching, waiting, smiling. And now, I wonder, how long before I disappear too? If you have a scary story of your own, feel free to send it in. You might just hear it in a future video. Since this is a new channel, I really appreciate every single one of you who made it to the end. Your support means everything to me. These videos will be a bit shorter since the stories are straight to the point, but I love how personal they are. It's so cool to hear real stories from real people. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps this channel grow and keeps the scary stories coming. Let's hit that 10,000 subscriber goal together. This was Max Reddit Tales, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe and stay spooky.